What's up, podcast people? It's your host, Mal, with another episode of Mal's Monday Podcast. I know we have a lot to talk about, break down, and understand, so let's not waste any time and get right into it. Today, we don't have any guests to unpack these topics with, but we do have a bunch of topics that you guys have submitted and would like to know about. So we'll be going through those today. Before we get started, I want to go ahead and shout out everyone tuning in on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Listen Notes, and Podbean. Make sure you don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell so you always know when it's Monday. And if you would like to donate to the podcast, you can do so at our site, malsmondaypodcast.com. Now let's jump right into it. So today's podcast episode is going to be about one topic in particular that people have been submitting and wanting to know about, and I thought this would be a great time to talk about it. So the topic that was submitted was wanting to know what my life has been like having a parent with autism. So many people don't know or don't even understand, have not ever heard of me talking about, my mom having autism, but she does, and I think this would be a great time to talk about what life is like with that as the situation that it is. So when I was younger, I always knew that my mom was a little bit different than most moms. She was a little bit more antsy, a little bit more outgoing, wanted to do a lot of different things. And when I brought her around my friends at school, a lot of them had a lot to say about her, had their own opinions, their own reactions to seeing her and the way that she acted. So I always thought, that's just my mom. She's a little bit different. I kind of let it be, leave it alone. Don't worry too much about it. Until down the line, I was talking to another family member, and they explained to me that my mom was different, and that she was not like most moms, which I mean was very clear to see if you just saw her. But I didn't understand to what extent that meant until I started realizing that I myself would start to not let her come on school trips with me because I knew that people around me would feel a certain way or act a certain way towards her, wouldn't tell her certain things about my life. So there's a lot of times that she should have been involved that I tried not to let her be involved. And the same thing stood for my sister, where we both, would limit how much we allow to happen with our mom's involvement because we just did not want to deal with the backlash that we got when people did see that our mom was a little bit different. So talking about what life is like with that, it definitely is hard. It becomes a challenge trying to understand and navigate what you should be doing and what you should not be doing, and what your mom is doing and what she should not be doing. The things she says, the things she does, the way she acts, the way she carries herself in certain situations. It all definitely plays a role in my upbringing and my sister's upbringing as well. Right now, at the age I'm at now, it's a little bit easier to know and accept and understand how to interact with my mom and how to make sure that she's interacting with everyone else who is around her. But it definitely does become a challenge because she is still different. But she does not let that stop her. Let's talk about a life example that I can think about more recently, where I was talking to a bunch of friends and introduced them to my mother, and instantly were a couple of snickers here and there. And in my head, I'm like in my head, I'm kind of like, this is normal. Like people understand what autism is at this point in age, and people understand that when you see someone who is different, what it could mean. So I was not very sure why, there were little laughs here and there, but it was because my mom was different. They saw very clearly, as anyone could see, that my mom was different. So yeah, that was one example that really kind of set the tone for how I interact with people. When people were asking, oh, where's your mom? Or how's your mom? Or, can I meet your mom? I make sure that it is made very clear that she is different and what she has, so that people are not going in and then get caught off guard. Because I was caught off guard when I would see people saying certain things about her, acting certain ways towards her, saying certain things about her. So yeah, that was definitely interesting for me. For my sister's side, I think it's also a bit challenging for her because she lives in a much different time now where people are most people are very okay and accepting of the differences, but there are also a lot of people who just simply have literally no chill, like no filter. They'll say whatever, they'll do whatever, they'll act however they want, and not feel anything about the fact that they're making fun of someone who has a disability, or they're thinking about someone a certain way who has a disability. And when I was younger, I would not pretend that I was a golden child. When I saw someone who looked different than me, I also shared my laughs a little bit here and there. But that was before I really understood that my mom was just like them, just much older. So I think it's definitely takes some experience for people to really understand what is happening in front of them before they just grasp it and understand it entirely and say, oh, like she's actually just different. So I really do like the fact that my mom takes that disability she has though and puts it into a positive thing. She does not let that limit her. She doesn't stop what she wants to do because of it. She has what is called high functioning autism, and for those who know or don't know the autism spectrum, it goes from like the lowest level, which is about high functioning, able to read, write, comprehend, think on your own, to the more severe levels where it's kind of like you kind of really depend on someone to basically live your life. So she has a high functioning. I think it definitely developed into that over time. Before, she was very shut out, very quiet, not talking to many people, not doing many things, not very outgoing. She followed very, very strict systems where she was going to work one way, take this train to this train. And if when those trains go down, it becomes a very, very hard time for her to figure out how she's supposed to even go, going to work the next day. So um, people always ask, how has your life been shaped because of that, or how have you chosen to live your life because of that? I don't choose to live my life through anyone else or anyone else's experiences. Um, I mean, I attend autism awareness walks. I did that before I understood what my mom had. It's like I still attend breast cancer awareness walks, and I know no one with breast cancer. So it's not that I live my life based on knowing that my mom has this, but it has definitely helped me understand other people when I see them going through the same thing, or I can now pick up more easily. Okay, that person is probably autistic. Not that person is probably autistic because they're super hyper, right? That's where, a very, very controversial topic comes in when they start talking about this person has ADHD, this person has autism because they're very hyper at a young age. Like, no, okay, that's just them being excited, that's them being an extrovert. But I can tell through different signs that I've seen through my mom, what and other people have, similar things going on. I can tell, that is probably somewhere on the autism spectrum. Um, there's a show that I watch called The Good Doctor, where the doctor Sean Murphy plays someone. Well, his name is Sean Murphy, but he plays someone who has autism. He's a doctor who has autism, and they portray that very, very well. Their actions that he does is very similar to the actions of someone who has autism. I know a lot of people who know people who have autism. I've experienced people. I've interacted with people who have autism, and they don't miss out on many of the key things that people who have autism actually go through. The very to themselves, not wanting to talk about what's going on, right? The very curious, the very quick to kind of shut down and shut everyone else out when they need time to just understand everything that's going on in their own lives. So I think The Good Doctor does a great job of portraying what autism is like in an adult. We hear autism very, very often when it comes to children and people growing older. Not very often do we hear it in adulthood, but we also tend to forget that to become an adult, we had to have lived as a child. And I don't know for a fact if autism does, kind of cure itself or, get better, but I know that when I was a child, my mom was still an adult. So I can never speak for what my mom's childhood was like. But I do know my mom's adulthood from the time that I can recall her being an adult. From when first realized that she was different. So yeah, Sean Murphy definitely plays a very key character in that show, and the script, the way it was written, is very key and on point as far as what it's like, battling. I wouldn't say battling because it's not really a battle, but what it's like having autism. Going through life with autism. Um, some people wanted to know from me, what is her life like? And quite frankly, to me, she lives her life as if every day it was just a normal day. My mom doesn't take medications for her autism because it's not really a sickness. She doesn't act a certain way because she has autism. In my eyes, she may randomly start doing things like singing random songs, but that's what most of us do, so I can't even characterize that as something that people with autism do. But she is a very internal thinker. She processes everything internally and then acts out on it, whereas most of us act out on things once they happen, and the very few of us who do internalize things first and then act out, it takes us a little bit longer. It takes us a little bit quicker to internalize it and then react to it. For her, it's a very, very long internal process, understanding from beginning to end everything that's going on and then acting. But there are times that she impulsively acts out on things. So I think she embodies a lot of what you would call normal people behavior, in the sense that she's not, you know, going up to people and randomly talking to them, or people think of autism as like someone who is crazy. Some people think of it that way. She's not crazy. To me, she's not crazy. To other people she may be. But if I just wanted to think, I think sometimes if I had autism, what would I act like? What is some how does someone with autism act? At least what does an adult with autism act like? Because I see a lot of, the kids who do have it, um, they just sometimes they're more outgoing, and sometimes they're just very more to themselves. Sometimes they, blurt things out of just like what they want to say or what they feel, and other times they keep everything in. Um, so it varies very, very much, from person to person, and it clearly varies as you get older, and as you mature through life, because things change, right? Life changes. There is a YouTuber who I watch who has a kid, and he has autism, and you know he is very energetic and out there, and bouncing around, but that's because he's very young, right? He's a young kid, and doesn't really understand that he has autism, or doesn't understand that he's different, because he lives his life every day, as if it was a regular normal day. I think um, if no one came up to my mom and said, you have autism, which I still to this day don't even know if that actually happened or not, but if someone came up to her, would she begin to act different knowing it? Right? It's almost like if someone came up to you and said, you're not going to be anything in life, do you hear that and then begin to act on that? Right? Otherwise, like if someone didn't tell you that, what would you be doing every day? Right? So I don't know if anyone came up to my mom and ever said, like, you have autism, or if a doctor ever said it, because in the times of my mom's growing up, autism was not autism. It was mental retardation. So don't really know if like people were sensitive enough or understood enough to categorize it as what it is, as opposed to just calling someone, the R word. So yeah, I think, if she heard that when she was younger, would her life have been different? Would she have acted a certain way? Would she still act a certain way knowing that? That's a good question that I don't have the answer to. But I do have the answer to the fact that my mom just, like I said, naturally reacts to things as if it was as if she was just a regular person, which she is. I look at disabilities as enhancers and not things that stop you from being able to succeed or do certain things. Does getting jobs, does her autism affect her getting jobs? Yeah, there's a few jobs that she just does not do well in, right? Jobs where you have to interact with people on a day-to-day basis. That's not her forte. She doesn't do very well with that because you have to interact with people. And when think about someone who works at retail, someone with autism, at least for my mom, is a very emotional driven person. So when something happens, it sits on her conscience. She's thinking about it and she wants to react to it emotionally, not always logically. So for her to be working with people, interacting with people every day, and some people come in with an attitude and feel certain ways about certain things, she can't act the way that she knows how to because of the job that she's doing. Whereas something like inputting, data into a computer works perfectly for her. Very little interaction with people, very little, having to deal with people and their problems and dealing with people's attitudes. So, for her, it's if she can be able to do something that is focused on her and she has complete control over it, she'll do a stellar job in that. Once you start putting her in front of other people and dealing with other people's attitudes and actions, it's a very hard time for her. Um, like I said, she's a very emotion driven person. So she gets upset, everyone's going to be upset, because that's just how she is. And that's not how all people with autism are, but that's just how my mom who has autism is. So, um, that's just one example. Another, another type of example where, life could be different for someone with autism. Um, I think that for her, she finds it a little bit more challenging to do things that she wants to do, whether it be because her own self doubts that she can do it, whether and that maybe because she is aware that she has, a disability, or because she just personally does not feel like she is cut to do that thing. But there are also times where she feels that she can do everything. My mom is a kid at heart, and I don't know if that's has to do with her, with her disability, or just with her just her young mind, her young heart. My sister and I would be playing Just Dance as we were over the weekend, and she'll come by and I want to join in, and she'll join in and bust some moves and have a grand time. There's other times that she'll just be sitting there and just be speaking out loud what she's thinking, and whether it be the best thing to do or not, she's going to do it. So there are things that we, and I say we as in what they categorize as normal people, which I personally don't think anyone is really normal. We all have something. But what they categorize as normal people, what we wouldn't normally do, like sit there and just start talking what we feel. My mom would, she feels comfortable doing that. And, if you hear it, you hear it. And if you don't, you don't. But she got it off her chest. Um, so, yeah, I definitely think that my life has not really changed drastically because of knowing my mom has a disability, because it doesn't stop her from her everyday, her everyday actions, her everyday living. She does everything that she does everything that I think normal people do. She's not depending on anyone to do anything for her. She gets it on her own. She does it herself. So yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting. I think I definitely live an interesting life, because when people do ask about my mom, and I'm able, and I say, yeah, she has autism. Yeah, 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 she's different. They're like, oh wow, like what is that like? And it's like it's interesting to so many other people, but to me, it's just my mom has autism. It's just that's what she is, and that's what she has. But she's still an everyday human. She still bleeds the same color as us. She does everything that we do. So she just has it. Her life is just a little bit, I guess, more enhanced, I would say. It's more driven, by a lot of different things that our normal lives are not really driven by on a daily basis. She processes things a lot differently than we do. She handles things a lot differently than we do. She thinks about things differently than we do. She doesn't speak about often when she's feeling a certain way, whereas some of us don't speak about it in that moment, and then we got to get it off our chest. For her, it's like, I feel this way and I feel this way, and that's just it. I'm not going to speak about it. You can ask me about it and I'll find something else to tell you, but I'm not going to tell you what I actually feel. Um, and that can be a positive and a negative things at times. So yeah, I definitely think that life with a parent with autism has been great. There are things that I wish were a little bit different, but I think all of us who have, anyone who has their parent in their lives has things that they wish were a little bit different. Wish their parent processed certain things a little differently. Wish their parents understood different things a little bit differently. Wish their parents did things a little differently. We all have the things that we wish were different from our parents, and that doesn't mean that all of our parents have autism or all of our parents have this disability and that disability. It just means that our lives are a little bit different than theirs, and we would like them to understand our lives a little bit more. So yeah, I definitely think that, like I said, my life has not really changed drastically. Nowadays when I want to go somewhere, my mom comes out with me. I'm not saying, "Mom, you got to stay home and let me go." I'm no longer scared to take my mom out places. If she is who she is, and it's not her job to fit in for everybody else. It's everyone else's job to accept her. And those who don't accept her don't have to accept her. Just respect her. That's my one thing. If you don't accept somebody, just respect that person, because they're human too. So I think as I got older and realized more and more, I don't really care much about people's opinions of my mom, because my mom is going to be my mom whether you like her or not. Um, so yeah. So, with that said, this is a great time talking to all of you and touching on this topic that I don't get to talk about much, and I think this was a great time to do so, with so many people asking about it and wanting to know about it. So, yeah, so I'll talk to you guys next Monday. Like I said, make sure you go ahead and subscribe, and turn on the bell so that every time I do go live on this podcast. Next Monday, we will have a guest on the podcast talking about a topic that I can't discuss right now, of course. And again, if you'd like, go over to mowsmondaypodcast.com, submit a topic for the podcast, go ahead and buy some merch, go ahead and donate. And just let me know what you think. So I'll see you guys next Monday. Peace.